Big win for Syracuse football last night. Here's what we learned.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, Syracuse football last night got a big victory over the NC State Wolfpack down in Raleigh, 24-17, and we're going over a couple big picture takeaways, how there are four main weapons on offense that Kyle McCord likes to target, the Syracuse kicking game, what's up with that, and to cap off the show, an ACC/top 25 outlook for Syracuse football, because this program right now is trending in the right direction. So tons to go over on today's podcast. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right. Big time win once again for Syracuse football. They handled their business. They were a favorite going into the game against NC State, and they found a way to get it done 24-17. And here was my first big takeaway from the game. Kyle McCord likes to target four main players on offense. Yes, this team will spread the ball around, and more than four players will get involved, but there are four main guys on this offense that each and every single week you can bank on. All right? And the reason why I'm starting off with this is because we talked about leading up into the game how Justice Ross Simmons, the Colorado State transfer, could have a big role in the offense. Fran Brown said it. It's like getting a big free agent back. And last night he had 0 catches for 0 yards. So, who are the four main weapons for Syracuse football? Let's start off with Oronde Gadsden. He's an All-American tight end. He had 6 catches for 74 yards last night, and he was particularly great in the short passing game early on against NC State, and he was also great at it against UNLV. Whether it's zone, whether it's man, it just seems like he's a great route runner. He knows where to be, and Kyle McCord very rarely misses when targeting Oronde Gadsden in the short passing game. All right, so he's weapon number one on this team. Number two, Trebor Pena, all right? He's going to be all ACC this season. I mean, his numbers are just too good. All right, knock on wood, hopefully he stays healthy, but if he stays healthy, and he did leave the game at some point in this game, but Fran Brown said in his post-game press conference that he's going to be okay for Pitt coming up. Take that for what it's worth. He's going to be all ACC. He had another 8 catches for 75 yards. And again, he's great in the short passing game. And he gets 8 catches for 75 yards like it's in his sleep. It really is. It's like very, very quiet, very subtle. Sometimes you notice him, sometimes you don't. But you look at his final stat line and you see 8 catches for 75 yards. It's kind of like how a star in basketball would score like 25 points in a night. And you're like, he had 25? I didn't even notice he had 25, right? That's kind of what it's like with Trebor Pena. Great in the short passing game. Cuse did try on the first drive of the game to target him deep, and Trebor Pena got open, but Kyle McCord missed the throw. Sometimes he's going to miss throws. He's not perfect, but he is the second of the four main weapons that Kyle McCord likes to target for this Syracuse team. Number 3, Jackson Meeks. He's really emerged. Okay, I did not see this coming. He is a Georgia transfer, but he didn't do much in his time at Georgia, so I didn't really know entirely what to expect. He's also a veteran. This is a senior. He's emerged. He had over 100 yards again last night. Over the last 3 games, here are Jackson Meeks' numbers. Ready for this? Last 3 games. 29 catches, so almost 10 a game. 344 yards, so that's an average of over 100 per game. And 3 touchdowns. And he's scored 1 touchdown in each of the last 3 games to total 3. Those are his last 3 games. This guy is I mean, 3 games, if you want to count it as a big sample or a short sample, whatever you want to count it. But in my opinion, he's proven himself. Okay, this is the quote-unquote wide receiver 1 on the team. And by saying wide receiver 1, I mean he is the number 1 outside wide receiver on Syracuse football. He has proven it. He has earned that title. He really took over for Zede Haynes, who is still out with personal reasons. I hope everything is okay. But Jackson Meeks has stepped right into that role and really emerged for this team. And that's a really good thing for Syracuse. So he is the 3rd one. And the 4th one, okay, the 4th one that Kyle McCord likes to target is LeQuint Allen. He was all ACC 2nd team last season. Obviously, we know they like to, he's a running back, right? But I'm talking about him as a receiver in this instance. Last night, he had one of his more quiet games in the receiving game, only 2 catches for 28 yards, but he's got 31 catches in 6 games. We're halfway through the year. That means he's on pace to catch over 60 balls this season. Last year, for context, a great receiving back had 38 catches in 13 games. Just for some context, he is 7 short of what he did last year, and I think we can all agree he was a great threat last season. Those are the 4 main guys, all right? And then he got 2 more. He got 2 more, so really it's 4 plus 2, because I don't want to leave out these 2 players. Umari Hatcher, I think, is an excellent deep option on this team. He really stretches the field. We saw that on the 28-yard touchdown, and also earlier in the game on a play action, Kyle McCord had Umari Hatcher wide open over the middle of the field. It was perfectly drawn up, but I guess the play wasn't really designed to go to Hatcher because McCord just didn't see him. But he was wide open at one point during this game down the middle of the field and had the 28-yard touchdown last night on that 1-and-1 perfect back shoulder throw by Kyle McCord. The broadcast actually said that Kyle McCord underthrew him. I don't think he underthrew him. I think it was a perfect back shoulder ball because Kyle McCord is very good at throwing that exact pass. And number 2 is Daryl Gill, who can just make plays when needed. We saw that in the Stanford game. We've seen it over this season. He can get open when you need him to get open. All right. So it's really 4 main weapons, which are Oronde Gadsden, Trebor Pena, Jackson Meeks, LeQuint Allen. Those are the 4 each and every game that you can bank on. And then you have the 2 more, which are Umari Hatcher and Daryl Gill, like the gravy on top of the turkey. Right? So what does that mean for a guy like Justice Ross Simmons? Well, I don't think he's really going to be a prominent feature in this offense. I really don't. Because, quite frankly, they don't need him to be. They got 4 main guys that they can target who can all do different things. So, for Justice Ross Simmons' role going forward, I guess you're hoping that he can step into the 4 plus 2 category and be, well, really make it a 4 plus 3. Umari Hatcher, Daryl Gill, Justice Ross Simmons. It sucks because we had high hopes for him. He was a big-time transfer when they got him, but this team has a lot of weapons. Feel like we say it every single week. They have a lot of weapons, and I think now we're halfway through the season, and after watching the NC State game, we know the 4 guys that Kyle McCord likes to target. We know them. We know the 4 guys, Gadsden, Pena, Meeks, and Allen. Those 4, and then he also will target Umari Hatcher down the field and Daryl Gill, who can sometimes just get open. Those are the main guys on offense for Syracuse football in the passing game. Once again, talking about the passing game for Syracuse football. So that was my number 1 takeaway from the game. Leave a comment below in the comment section, your main takeaways of this game. Do you agree with me that this team has 4 main weapons, or do you think it extends beyond that? And what do you think Justice Ross Simmons' role is going forward for this team? Because once again, Fran Brown said he's going to play maybe a prominent role against NC State, and he did not. There's 4 main guys for Syracuse football, plus Hatcher and Daryl Gill. All right, so that's the first big takeaway. Now, coming up, let's talk about the Syracuse special teams, but specifically the kicking game. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free, and LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Syracuse had plenty of chances against NC State to settle for 3 points. And I have three main instances, but honestly, I could be missing some. Three main cases where they could have taken the field goal and instead opted to go for it on fourth down. There was a 4th and 5 in the first half. There was a 4th and goal in the fourth quarter that led to a Jackson Meeks touchdown that I think put them up 24-7 in the fourth. And then there was a 4th and 7 in the red zone at the end of the fourth quarter. There was about 3-ish minutes left in the game. It seemed like an obvious spot to kick a field goal, but once again, Syracuse went for it on 4th and 7. They did not get it in that instance. And once again, I could be missing some. All right. Those were just three that I wrote down, but it seemed like every time that Syracuse really had a chance, with the exception of their one field goal try from 43 yards, but that was after a sack. It was 4th and very long, so they didn't really have much of a choice. But it seemed like every time there was a 4th and manageable on the plus side of the field, they went for it. Especially when there was a 40-yard field goal or less, which you would hope your kicker can make. So here is the deal. All right? I'm going to shoot it to you straight. I really don't care what Fran Brown says or what anyone says, because they're not actually going to admit the truth about the kicking game on this team. They're not going to admit the truth. All right? He's never going to say, quote unquote, I don't trust the kicker. But here's the deal. They don't trust the kicker. Whether it's Brady Denaburg or Jadyn Oh, those three instances, the 4th and 5 in the first half, the 4th and goal, you can debate that if they should have gone for it or not. It was less egregious. It was 4th and goal within, I think, the 2 or 3 yard line. So, okay, we can let that slide. That's more aggressive, but not egregious. But the 4th and 7 at the end of the fourth quarter is not, you can't defend that. You have to kick the field goal there every single time when you're up 24-10. You have to. But they did not in that instance. They don't trust the kicker. If they ever make a comment on it, they're probably going to say something like it's an analytical play, and the analytics say if it's 4th in this distance or less, that you got to go for it. And they might not be wrong. They're probably not lying. At one point, they said in the press conference that the analytics did say to go for it on a couple instances. But here's the deal with analytics, all right? They can be wrong. Analytics don't necessarily always value the points. They really don't. They can be wrong. There's a reason why Brandon Staley is no longer the coach of the LA Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers, but it's the LA Chargers. All right? You can't coach a football game solely on analytics. Analytics are a tool, right? They're a tool that you can use, but there's a reason why robots do not coach football. Human beings coach football. Situations matter. Personnel matters. So I don't care if they try to make the analytics excuse or if they don't try to admit it. I think this team showed you, and this coaching staff more specifically showed you, that they do not trust the kicking game on this team. Jadyn Oh, for what it's worth, he made all of his extra points, which is nice to see. He did miss a 43-yarder to the left, but once again, they had to kick that one because it was 4th and forever after a sack. Brady Denaburg, he has been relegated to just kickoff duty. Shout out to Brady Denaburg, though, because he might be the best tackler on the team. I mean, he laid the wood on that NC State player after a kickoff. I mean, my goodness, he hit him hard. He got popped. Shout out to Brady Denaburg there. What does this mean going forward, though, for Syracuse football? All right? Because I just told you, I shoot it to you straight. This coaching staff does not trust their kicking game. They don't. They don't trust them. Actions will speak louder than words. There were multiple instances where they should have settled for the field goal. They did not. They went for it. So going forward, what should you expect? Well, Syracuse is just going to be more aggressive. They're going to be ultra aggressive going forward. I would say anything that is fourth and a manageable distance, let's say, I don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but let's say 4th and 7 is a manageable distance or less in plus territory, they're going to go for it. That's the truth. They're going to go for it. I get not punting. I don't like punting on the plus side of the field unless you absolutely have to. But with field goal games, let's say it's a 35-yarder versus a 4th and 7, I think that they're going to go for it. More likely than not. That is the truth. And to be honest with you guys, I support it. I support it. I support the aggressiveness. Not because of the principle, but because of the staff's reasoning, whether they want to admit it or not. If you don't trust your kicker to make a field goal, then leave the offense on the field. I don't see the problem in that. If Syracuse had Justin Tucker or any of these All-American kickers that are in college right now, if they had the Florida State kicker, that's their best player on the team, that's different. That's a different story. But Syracuse does not have an All-American kicker. They don't have an All-Conference kicker. So going forward, expect this team to be ultra aggressive. And I don't have a problem with it because of the personnel. I don't. There was an instance on that 4th and 5 specifically. I recall tweeting like, why are they going for it? It doesn't make sense. They're up 3-0. It's the second quarter of the game. There's no reason to go for it on 4th and 5 in the red zone. Just take the field goal or at least try the field goal. Well, I get it now. I get it. All I ask going forward is that they stay consistent. All right. When they play Pitt next week, don't settle for the field goal on 4th and 5 on a 35-yard attempt. Don't do it. Go for it. That's what you did against NC State. If you don't trust this kicking game, then stick with it. Stay with the offense on the field. So going forward, I will make a vow that I will not tweet to take the points on those situations. If it's different, if it's a 20-yarder, fine, I get it. But if it's like 35 plus, go for it. That was one of my main takeaways from this game. Expect that Syracuse, their offense, they're going to be much more aggressive in the plus side of the field because, once again, whether they want to admit it or not, the coaching staff does not trust their kicker. Whether it's Denaburg, whether it's Oh, they don't trust him. That's the bottom line, all right? So those were the big 2 takeaways. There are 4 main weapons on this offense, and Syracuse going forward is going to be ultra aggressive in the plus side of the field. All right? Those are my 2 big takeaways. Once again, leave a comment in the comment section below your 2 big takeaways or however many takeaways you have from Syracuse's win over NC State and going forward into the bye week, into Pitt, and into really the second half of this season. All right? So that about does it for the takeaways. Now coming up, ACC outlook and a top 25 outlook for Syracuse football. I know we're talking a lot about football here, and for good reason. Syracuse football is 5-1. Hey, look at that. They're 5-1, right? But basketball season is just around the corner, whether it's the NBA or college like Syracuse, right? Going to basketball games is always exciting, and the way I get tickets for games is by using Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And my favorite feature is the curated deals because curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Where does Syracuse football sit in the ACC, and what is their top 25 outlook? Right now, Syracuse football is in a pretty good spot. They are 5-1 and 2-1 in the ACC. Overall, I think they have recovered from the loss against Stanford. As brutal as it was, they should not have beaten Stanford. Stanford has proven since then to not be a very good team. They lost at home. They were one play away from just eking out the win, which is all they needed to do. As brutal as it was, they flipped that result by beating UNLV and beating NC State. I thought the best case in the preseason was that they would split UNLV and NC State. Lo and behold, they sweep them but lose to Stanford. I think before the year, if I said the first half of the season, Syracuse football would go 5-1, think 99.9% of you guys would have signed on the dotted line. If I just handed you a sheet of paper and it said Syracuse football will be 5-1 at the halfway point, you would have signed on the dotted line. Don't lie to me, all right? If that paper wouldn't tell you who they beat, it wouldn't tell you who they lost to, it would just say they're going to be 5-1. Will you take that? I think your answer would be yes. As brutal as it is that loss came against Stanford, you would have, preferably they would have beaten Stanford, been 3-0 in the conference, and lose out a conference to UNLV. That would have been better because then they would be 3-0 in the ACC, and they would have another conference loss to play with in their margin for error, right? Making the ACC championship game at this point, they might have to go 7-1. I think they do have to go 7-1, which means you have to run the table. You got 5 more conference games left. You got to run the table. So I think we would prefer they beat Stanford, lose to UNLV. But you know what? Once again, I give you that paper. They're 5-1 at the halfway point. You would have signed for it. There's no doubt in my mind. I would have signed for it. I would have signed for 5-1. So here's the deal. Syracuse football just needs to keep winning. They need to keep winning. I know it's blunt. I know it's not the most in-depth analysis that you might be looking for, but they really just have to keep winning. They really do. Their next opponent is Pitt after a bye week, who, by the way, is also going to be coming off a bye. They square off not next Thursday, but the Thursday after that, little Thursday night football action. Pitt is going to be ranked. They're going to be remaining ranked. Now, at the time I'm recording this, I don't think the top 25 has been released yet, so this could be a tiny bit dated as far as where they're actually ranked, but they just came off a hard-fought win against Cal at home. I don't think they're going to drop out of the top 25 by winning. If anything, they'll stay around the same in the low 20s, I guess, maybe 22. Isn't that where they were before? They're going to probably be in the 20s. Maybe they crack the top 20. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe they'll be anywhere between 16 and 25. How about that? All right. Pitt is going to be a ranked team when Syracuse travels to Pitt in a couple of weeks. All right. As far as the top 25 for Syracuse, again, I am recording this before the top 25 rankings have been released for this week. I imagine that Syracuse was not in the top 25, but certainly got votes for it. I don't think they're going to be ranked, though. And I could be wrong. I could be pleasantly surprised when I check the rankings soon. I could be pleasantly surprised. But I don't think they're going to be ranked. It's not the end of the world. I don't really care whether they're ranked or not. It really makes no difference right now because when you look at Syracuse's schedule and you look at the ACC path that they have, being ranked right now means nothing. It does not matter being ranked right now. Sure, it's cool. It's nice to have that little ranking next to your name when you're watching the broadcast, but it really doesn't matter. I highly doubt that after the bye week that Syracuse is going to move into the top 25, but it is possible. It's possible because if enough teams lose, your team can creep up the rankings solely because you didn't lose that week. You were on a bye, so technically you didn't lose. That could happen. It has happened before in the past, but I don't see it happening for Syracuse in this instance. So here's the deal. If you're someone that really cares about being in the top 25, well, They beat Pitt, they're top 25. No doubt in my mind. They'd be 6-1, 3-1 in the conference. No doubt they would be a top 25 team in college football if they're 6-1, if they can beat Pitt. Take that for what it's worth. Overall, I'm happy with the spot that Syracuse is in. I'm very, very happy with it. They're 5-1 at the halfway point. Again, we would have all taken that at the beginning of the season, that they'd be 5-1. I wouldn't tell you who they're going to beat. I wouldn't tell you who they're going to lose. If I just told you 5-1, you would have taken it. And sorry to my Yankees fans that are watching or listening to this podcast, but truthfully, this quote is true. As Aaron Boone says, it's right in front of them. It's right in front of them for Syracuse football. If they beat Pitt, they're in position to potentially win out and play Miami that final game of the season for the right to go to the ACC championship game. It's right there. It's right in front of them. And I shouldn't really feel sorry for Yankees fans. They're in the ALCS, all right? It could be a whole lot worse. But I know Yankees fans hate when Aaron Boone says that, but it's true in this case for Syracuse football. It definitely applies. It is right there for this team to take it. It's there. Go out and grab it. Okay, they don't exactly have murderer's row coming up of teams. They just got to beat Pitt in a couple of weeks. I think they're in the hunt, and if they can beat Pitt, they are squarely in contention for the ACC championship game. So that about does it for this podcast. The four main weapons, the kicking game for Syracuse, an ACC and top 25 outlook for this team. They are in good position heading into their second bye week of the season. They are 5-1 at the midway point, and we all would have certainly taken that. And thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On ACC podcast, because Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real and they bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. And I imagine they're going to have pretty high praise for Syracuse football because they're in a pretty good spot right now. I hope they at least have high praise, but who knows? Maybe they won't. Maybe they don't really believe in Syracuse. That's fine. They're going to tell their own truth. But you can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And everyone, take care.